Hey everybody, and today we are going to talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is just the understanding and the proper use of emotions and how to handle your own feelings, how to handle your own emotions, how to process negative and positive feelings on a healthy level, and then react in a healthy way to whatever those emotions may be. So the importance, why emotional intelligence is so important, is because things change. Life isn't perfect and it doesn't always go according to plan. As a matter of fact, it's more likely that it will not always go according to plan. That when it does, it's more of when life goes according to plan, that's more of the exception than the rule. Um, because there's so many variables and there's so many things outside of your control. And I know specifically me, but I know a lot of men that I talk to. We tend to be control freaks, and we want to be able to be in control of. There we go. And we tend to be control freaks, and we want to be in control of everything. And we get real stressed out when things don't go according to plan, and we don't feel like we're in control of everything that's going on around us or in our lives. And we tend to then internalize and shut down emotionally, at least on a surface level. Uh, and we usually respond in stress, or we usually respond to stress in either silence or anger or a lot of different things. It's a big trigger for different, drinking, drugs, pornography. It's one of the leading causes of depression and anxiety among men is the inability to properly handle those negative emotions and stress and those changes in life that we can't control, that feeling of hopelessness. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be like on that level of like feeling like, you know, woe is me, the world is lost, that type of um, like emotional distress. It can be, simple and smaller things, because emotional intelligence is not just something you use on a higher level. It's something that's required of every level of emotion that you feel and deal with on a daily basis. So we're just going to go over a few points. First, we're going to establish um, really the emotional intelligence. I just kind of went over an overview of why it's important, but what makes it important, and then some things you can do to strengthen and grow your own emotional intelligence. So for the first thing that you have to understand about emotional intelligence and why it's so important is, number one, you have to understand what under and it's fine. I was an English major, so you think spelling would be my thing. Understand the role of emotions. So first, you need to understand what the job, what the role, what the function of emotions are. So emotions are neutral things. I'm gonna write that down. So they're neutral. Yeah. Emotions are neutral things. I don't know. Y'all can kind of see that. My spelling is so bad. I'm sorry about my handwriting. So let's see. Neutral. Um, if you're taking notes, I'm sorry that you can't read that at all, but it says neutral. So emotions, understand the role, the function of emotions, the job of emotions. Emotions are neutral things. Now there are negative, emotions that they have a negative connotation to them: anger, stress, anxiety, depression, lust, greed. I mean, those are all things. A lot of those involve actions, but they start as an emotional feeling. And then there's obviously ones that have positive connotations: happiness, joy, um, peace, um, you know, different. all the different adjective words we can think of. But there's negative and positive connotations to those emotions. But the feelings themselves are neutral to the reality of the situation. Because you have to understand that the point of emotions are this is emotions are just, and I know I've said it before, emotions are just information. They're tools to be used. Emotions are an internal response to external stimulus or to external circumstances. What that means, something is going on outside of you, and your internal self, your mind, your will, your emotions is processing, and it's using, and it's triggering and stimulating past experiences, core beliefs, fight or flight response, your language center, your processing center in your brain, your critical thinking, all of these things all at once. It's deep in your nervous system because it's sending signals to all the muscles in your body on how to react, whether to smile, whether to frown, whether to scorn, whether your muscles need to tense up in preparation to respond, or to relax because you've entered a relaxing atmosphere and a relaxing circumstance. All these things, emotions help affect and are information that the body is sending, and the body and the brain are talking to each other and coming up with whatever the emotion is. Like case in point, when you get cut off in traffic, you feel you might feel anger, you might feel stress, anxiety. If you get anxious driving because you might be afraid because for a half a second you thought you were going to die. All these things, and you feel all these emotions, and they're all just a quick response to, like I said, that external stimulus and circumstance, to where then you respond. But then once you receive those emotions, then you start adding your own little spice to what you're feeling, to then try to understand things beyond just that initial action. So which brings us to the next thing is, you understand the role of emotions. And another one is feelings, or the next one, I should say, feelings are real, but not always reality. Feelings are real, but not always reality. What that means, what that means is that everything you feel is real. Don't deny your feelings, don't stuff your feelings down, don't ignore your feelings, don't act like you don't feel things, or you feel a certain thing because you think you're supposed to feel something else. That is the exact opposite of emotional intelligence. As a matter of fact, that's emotional immaturity and emotional insecurity. Is you feel insecure in your ability to share an emotion because you deem it negative or you deem it weak, and that's an immature response. Let's just be honest; it's an immature response to something that literally happens to every single person that's ever existed, outside of a very few people who we call psychopaths. So if you don't feel any of these things, we need to have a different conversation. But for our sake, for the course's sake, feelings are real, but not always reality. So just because you feel something, yes, it is real. That person cut you off in traffic, the feelings of anger, the feelings, all the things we talked about, those are real. They're happening, they're there. But they're not always reality, because we have to think about, okay, we feel scared because someone cut us off, and for half a second we thought we were going to hit somebody and die. Okay, it's very real. Reality says that is a possibility. So okay, you process that emotion. Man, I was scared for half a second because I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. Reality actually says that I didn't die, so I don't need to be scared. Okay, you've processed the emotion. You didn't deny that you felt it. I wasn't scared. It freaked me out. Scared for half a second. Peed my pants a little bit. But I'm cool now. Okay, you move on. You feel angry because that person cut you off. And when you dive into that one, you can get all sorts of things. Well, why do I feel angry? Well, you feel angry because you feel entitled to the space that you have on the road, and that may or may not be true. He said, that may be true in the fact that um, they didn't use their blinker and it was just a random, they cut over, not looking, not thinking, and you're entitled to your space on the road, um, but also no, because there's times when you're flip it around and you're doing the same thing, and a lot of times that anger, so you feel that entitlement, but you also feel a sense of like disrespect from the other person, like it's like they did it because they hate me, and that may sound kind of like obnoxious, and it's definitely, it's our subconscious exaggerates things way more than our conscious mind ever actually thinks, um, because that's just how our subconscious mind works, is it just does extremes, because our conscious mind does rationality, our subconscious mind does not deal well in rationality, so it's always on extreme ends of the emotional spectrum. And so you think, oh, that's, I don't think like, oh yeah, no, they hate me or they disrespect me, stuff like that, but subconsciously that's where that is drawing from. And so you assume that person saw you and was like, I'm gonna cut that person, and everything like that, when in reality maybe that person didn't see you. Maybe that person's running late and just like really needed to honestly get over to the other lane because they missed their exit, or they, whatever it may be. And not that they did it the right way or anything like that, but there's just so much more than just to the momentary feeling that you have, that we're like, oh, blah blah blah, where you can then begin to understand, and it's not to excuse the what they did, or it's not to um, downplay, that's not the word, but downplay is the word I'm going to go with, like downplay the action that caused uh, or the action that caused that emotional response, but it's to then understand why your emotional response is what it is, so then you can process it and let it go and move on. Because there's so many people, I have met so many people that, like, say, on their way to work they get cut off and then they talk about it all day long, and it's like, okay, dude, like, who cares? Move on. Like, we're past that. People that they hold on to these things, and sometimes they may be a little greater, but it's things where it's like, somebody, a friend betrayed them, a girlfriend, betrayed them, a spouse betrayed them, like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. A friend, betrayed them, a business partner betrayed them, uh, family member betrayed, something that's deep, that has some weight to it, but it happened like 10, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And you're like, and they might actually be more mad now than they were then. And it just like keeps them in this like state of anxiety and stress and anger that doesn't affect the other person, is living their life and does not give a rat's patootie about what that other person, for, they may, but like, it's not affecting that other person at all. They're living their life going, not having any idea that this other person is harboring this deep sense of hate and anger towards them. And so you see that all the time. I'm sure you, as I'm saying this, you can think of people in probably your own family. Unfortunately, it's in most families, you can think of one person, um, that is like that. If you trigger the wrong memory, that you're going to have to hear about, what happened in 1972 on a summer, windy March day when Sue said she's leaving me for Bob, and they took everything and the dog, and it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. I mean, that sucks. That sucks for you that happened a long time ago. Can we please move on to something else? You've like not done anything else with your life since then. But you get stuck in these emotional ruts because you don't process the actual emotion and understand what that internal response, why you have that internal response. So you can't actually ever release it. You hold on to the offense, you hold on to the emotion. And it can be true for positive emotions as well. So that's why they're neutral. It's not like you don't want to just hold on to one emotion. You want to let emotions flow, because that's what they do. Emotions flow, they change, which brings me to my next one. To understand emotions is feelings change. Sorry, guys. Consequences don't. Feelings change. Consequences don't. There is a consequence to every action that you have. Consequences, once again, I know we equate that word with negative, but a consequence can be both positive or negative. It's a neutral word. It's just a consequence is a cause and effect. It's a reaction to an action. So feelings change, consequences don't. What that means is you feel something. Say, case in point, you feel lust, or here we go. You feel anger at your spouse. Your wife, didn't do something for you, or honestly, your wife was being a butthole. Wives can do that sometimes. And, she disrespected you, or she didn't listen to you, whatever it may be, maybe something little, maybe something, big that would, hurt most people. But whatever it may be, so it's funny because it's like, I've found that emotions don't care about the size of the initial action, like the response. Like I've heard people that, like if you equate the emotional response, like someone does something to them that you would, that would be equal to stubbing their toe. It hurts. And then there's things where people have done things to people that you would say would be equal to getting shot in the stomach. And yet the person who stubbed their toe feels the same amount of emotional pain as the person who was shot in the stomach. Because that's how it works. It's like, I know, at least from personal experience, that like having talked to women that their husbands have had multiple physical ongoing affairs over decades, feel the same pain, or the pain they feel. And when I've talked to women whose husbands have struggled with pornography, never physically with a person, but just with pornography, and even for shorter amounts of time, feel the same pain and betrayal that the other wife does, because that emotional response, it reacts the same way. So it could be big, little, and that emotional response. Your wife could do something, like your wife could come up to you and say, "I hate you. You'll never be a man. You'll never amount to anything." And she could say, something slightly less condescending, just kind of, whatever. Like, you forgot to take out the trash. You never do anything, which, she's frustrated and you get it. But said you can have the same internal feeling to both of those things, even though one, rationally and unbiasedly speaking, is a lot worse to say to somebody than the other. But that emotional response is the same. Like the emotional pain is the same. Like the same, you can be happy from a little thing just as happy as you are from a big thing. It goes both ways. But feelings change, consequences don't. So what that means is you have to understand with emotional intelligence is you're going to feel things. You're going to feel things in the moment. The moment is going to pass. Whatever you do with those feelings, there is a consequence for them that will last far beyond the feeling will, even for feelings that last for a longer amount of time. Let's say, case in point, going back to talking about, the betrayal, spouse betrayal, stuff like that. I've heard stories and talked to people where the husband cheated on the wife, and so then the wife, being hurt, goes out, does her own extracurriculars, and gets pregnant. And that wife, even though that initial feeling, she did not want to end the marriage. She wanted to work on trying to work through that together, but she made a decision. She got pregnant, and therefore that adds a consequence that makes things even more difficult. And that's not to say, well, that makes him right and her wrong. Nope. It's a reaction. Like I said, there's a consequence to his, obviously, and then there's a consequence to hers, and they each have to own up and be responsible and take responsibility for their own actions. And so these are what you need to understand when it comes to emotional intelligence. You understand the role of the emotions. You understand that feelings are real, but not always reality, and that feelings can change and consequences don't. So you understand all those things. You're able to, when you go throughout your day, and I know I've said this before, like it can get tiring because you have to think about what you're thinking about. Because the reason why you lack the emotional intelligence is because that emotional intelligence muscle, the mental muscles that you need in order to healthily process emotions and information, in order to live a mentally healthy life, have not been worked. So that's why it's hard. It's just like if you go to the gym, when you first start, or in my case as a runner, when you first start, that 1 mile is hard. I know people are like, I don't even know how to 1 mile. I said, well, okay, well, here, we're going to start 1 mile. It's going to be difficult. I said, it may take you 15, 20 minutes to run/walk that mile. That's okay. You've never done it before. Let's start. Said, but next thing you know, they're doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles, and they're doing it faster and able to run the whole time, because it requires that work, that building of the endurance, the building of the strength of the muscle. You have to use it. When you've never used it, or when it's underdeveloped, it requires time and it requires effort in order to develop and grow that emotional intelligence muscle. So it's going to be difficult. You are going to get frustrated. You are going to get to have an opportunity, and that's what I want us to begin to see these negative, I'll attach a video here like I did on the last one with the assume the feelings of the wish fulfilled, but it's a short video. You may have seen it. It went viral a couple years ago, but it's a Jocko Willink video where he talks about, it's called Good, and he said that a man that he was a subordinate to him, he was a Navy SEAL. For those who don't know who Jocko Willink is, he's a former Navy SEAL, and he also has written a bunch of books on discipline and tactic and strategy in life and business, from things he learned when he was in the SEAL teams. He's an awesome man. I highly suggest you listen to anything by him. You can learn a lot. But he talks about, he says that the subordinate would come to him and said, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. We didn't get funding, we didn't get the new gear, we didn't get this. And he would always just say, okay, good. Okay, good. It's okay, it didn't happen? Good. It didn't go the way as planned? Good. And he just kept doing this, and then finally one day he came to him and he said something about us. And he said, but I know what you're going to say. And he kind of laughed to himself. He said, what? What am I going to say? He said, you're going to say good. He said, that's right. You see, because when things don't go according to plan, you have two responses. You can cry, you can throw a pity party, or you can see it as the opportunity it is for you to grow and challenge yourself to become stronger, better, and more equipped for the future than you already are. You will never be able to grow without a challenge. You will never be able to get better without a challenge, without difficulty, without that friction. This is an iron sharp. The Bible says iron sharpens iron. So does man sharpen man. That's what we're doing here. This is men sharpening each other. We're sharpening our minds. We're sharpening our bodies, so that way we can be the men, the husband, the fathers, the brother, the grandfathers, the employee, the employer, whatever it may be that God has called us to be. And it requires this work. It requires this perspective of when things go wrong and people look at us, we say, okay, good, let's get to work. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to go according to plan. That's the importance of developing this, because then when it doesn't go according to plan, you're able to go, okay, let's process this and let's figure out a way to move forward, because you either move forward or you die. That's all you got. That's all you got. You need to accept that right now. Move forward or die. And I don't mean physically die, though that can happen too. But I think a mental and emotional death is far worse than any physical one, because that one, you continue to go through the emotions. You continue to make the same mistakes. You continue to stay the same or get worse than where you currently are. And not only do you see your dreams fade, but you see that you never took a step to achieve them. I would rather fail. I would rather fail over and over again going forward than to stay where I am right now, to stay where I was, a couple years ago. I honestly, I probably would not be here right now. I would probably take my own life. We'll just be honest. Let's be vulnerable. That's what this is here for. So, but I was able to get these were taught to me. I didn't figure these out from my own mentors, from counselors, from the Bible, from wise men. I was able to get these things in my heart and in my soul and in my spirit, and use these to strengthen that emotional muscle. So I'm going to go over a couple things that you're going to start doing this week and for the rest of your life in order to continue to grow that emotional intelligence. Because like I said, everything we're learning here is this is not a program to get you to a specific goal at the end of the 90 days. Though there are goals you will set that you will achieve within those 90 days. But it's not just like, okay, cool, I lost 20 pounds and I feel better about myself right now. It's that I want to be able to equip you so when those 90 days are up, that you are then equipped to be able to go and conquer the world, not just the 90 days, but for the rest of your life, that you'll be able to achieve things far greater than you could have just 30, 60, 90 days ago, wherever you are at in this program. So this is not just for 90 days, this is for the rest of your life. So, a few things that you're going to do. My wife is going to be so mad at me that I use this towel, but I don't care. I'll just buy another one if she does. Like $3 from Walmart. Which, that's one thing. This is completely off topic, but for anybody listening, I want to delve into my psyche. Growing up, there was always those fancy towels in like the guest bathroom or like the half powder room, whatever. Like they're there, but you can't use them. They're just there to look pretty. Like, what's the point? I'm so glad as I found with like anybody my age and younger is we don't do that anymore. It's wonderful because I think that's stupid. But a few things to grow and develop and to strengthen that emotional intelligence that you can start right now is, number one, I already said it. Think about what you think about. Wow. I wrote that bad. Think about what you think about. I don't know why I underlined. Think about what you think about. Cool. Think about what you think about. I don't know why I underlined about, but I did. So think about what you think about. I've said that about 8 times now. I know I've said it in other videos. So first thing you need to do is when you think of something, when you feel something, is to stop and take an inventory of what you're feeling, what was happening around you when you felt it, what thoughts were going through your head when you felt it. This is what so with dealing with my own pornography addiction and dealing with my own um, depressive thoughts and mental and emotional spirals I would go on. I realized I had to when that initial trigger happens, because you'll be going throughout your day and then something happens and then boom, you feel whatever feeling that triggers you. That usually when you feel this feeling, you go on either an emotional spiral, you go to the beer bottle, you go to the weed, you go to the computer, you go to whatever negative response, or not negative response, but whatever unhealthy response that you use to try to cope with those emotions. Um, so you need to find. So when that happens, instead of doing it, so you have to get used to it. If you wait till that moment to try to start thinking about what you think about, you're going to fail every time. Like I said, you don't start trying to bench press 300 pounds. You start with the bar. So we're going to start with the bar. So you start with the easy emotions. You start with let me give an example to try to help you understand in case. So like what's a good easy like thing, like you watch a commercial. Let's say what you was in the digital age we live in. You watch a commercial. You weren't hungry before. You saw the Whataburger commercial. All of a sudden you want a burger. So you start thinking about, okay, why do I want a burger? Why am I hungry now? So, well, I just did see this commercial. Okay, well, why? Well, I do remember this one time, when I would go hunting with my dad, we would always stop at Whataburger, and Whataburger always was good, and it always made me happy. Okay, well, it's been a rough day. I am kind of hungry. Said I haven't eaten in a while, and Whataburger specifically sounds good because I have good memories there. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna go get Whataburger. I'm hungry. I'm not gonna go pig out. I'm gonna go and eat a burger and enjoy life. Okay, boom. So you start something, and it's like it sounds like nonsense because you're like, dude, why are you trying to emotionally understand why you want a burger? But you have to start there, because if you wait till you're in the midst of an emotional spiral where you go and do something stupid, you will go and do something stupid. Like if you try, like I said, if you try to start bench pressing 315, you're gonna die. Do not do that. Start with the little things. Start with the small things. Build that muscle. Build that muscle. You're here because you don't have these muscles. If you're watching this video, be honest with yourself. Through all this, I've talked about it, a lot through every section. You have to be honest. If you are not honest with yourself about where you're at, about what you struggle with, about what you need to work on, then you will listen to all this. You may do some cool things, and then nothing will change. And in 6 months, when I hear from you or check up on you or see you, you're going to be back exactly where you were, and I'm going to be pissed off because you didn't put in the work that you needed to put in. And I know this because I have done that myself. It took me 5, 6, 7 years. 7 years going through to learn all this stuff. It took me 7 years because I did not do what I am trying to teach you to do. Because when I finally did, now I am where I am now. Now I am where I am. Now, I guess, okay, that's right. But, so be honest with yourself and put in the work for this, because I promise you, it may sound stupid, it may be exhausting. I said, it's hard thinking about, like, that's a lot of work, because you have to think about everything twice, and your muscles aren't used to it because you're used to letting your emotions and your mind and your thoughts just rule your world. And so it was easy, even though it sucked. So it's like, the whole choose your heart. You say, okay, yeah. It says it's hard to have to grow and to think and to develop those emotional muscles. But the benefits are amazing. Said it's easy to just let your mind and your emotions rule you, and you just live and do whatever you feel and act however you feel. But then you have to live with the consequences of those actions, and you'll be stuck, and you'll never be able to achieve your dreams, and you'll never be able to achieve your goals and the purpose that God has for your life. Said one benefits now at the expense of later, and the other one at the expense of now will benefit you exponentially later. So think about what you think about, because you need to understand. So I would suggest from that is a feelings journal. Yeah, we're going to do some journaling. A feelings journal. That I know sounds like the most unmasculine thing that you could do, but if you can think of a better name, call it that and let me know, because all I've got is feelings journal. What that means, or you can put emotions journal. That sounds a little less wimpy, and it doesn't have to be like an actual journal. You can use your notes. You can use a piece of paper. You can use the back of an envelope. Just something where you can write it down. And for 3 days, you're going to go through, just like we talked about in the other video, if you haven't watched it yet, but in another video, we talked about emotions and in your mental health and food. It said is writing down what you're eating, stuff like that. But feelings, you're going to write down pretty much what we walked through, like I walked through with the Whataburger thing, but you're going to write it down because you need to remember, because men will do this thing and then we'll immediately forget about it. Said write it down. So that way, number one, on our next call, we can walk through some of those, and we can see, okay, see how your process worked, and see where your growth is, and we can give you some encouragement. We can give you some direction in case you're having a hard time. Just write it down, and it's not like there's no right or wrong answer. Just write it down. Just answer. Why? Okay, what am I feeling? What's happening around me that makes me feel this way? So, okay, let's bust it down. Break it down. When you're writing down your emotion journal, or when you're taking emotional inventory throughout the week, emotional inventory sheet, we're going to call it that. Emotional inventory sheet. That sounds way less, lame than feelings journal. Emotional inventory sheet. So your 3-day emotional inventory sheet. And I might see if I can come up with a template and attach like a link for like a Google Doc, so you can just print it off if you want to do that, so you can know exactly what you need to do. But if you don't, so what you feel in that moment, what is happening around you, like I said, you feel angry. Why? What's going on? Well, someone cut me off in traffic. Okay. What do I perceive about that? Okay, so like I said, it's in its internal response to external circumstance. What do I perceive about that that incident or that circumstance? Well, that person cut me off, and I perceive that they disrespect me, and they think they're better than me, whatever. And like I said, I said, be honest, and whatever, be honest, whatever that may be. Just be honest about it. Okay, 4. Okay, but what does reality say? Like what are these feelings based on in reality? Okay, how can I maturely and healthily respond to these emotions in this circumstance? Those 5 things. And if I'll get a template made and I'll attach it, Google Doc or something, under the link of the video as well, so that way that you can just print that off and use that. But that'll be part of thinking about what you're thinking about. I want to erase this because I have to write so big because my handwriting is so ugly. So number 2, second thing you're going to do is stop assuming intentions. intent. Gosh darn it. Intentions. I don't think that's right. Yeah, that's right. Stop assuming intentions. So we like to judge everybody based on their actions or their what we assume are their intentions, and we like to not judge ourselves on our actions, but what we assume are our intentions. What that means is, like I was talking about, is we assume the intentions of others. So when we say we are at the mall or at church, or at work, at the store, wherever other humans are, where you run in and see other human beings, and you see somebody across the hall, down the aisle, whatever it may be, and it's somebody that you know, and you wave at them, and you think they see you. You're like, I swear they're looking right at me. And they don't wave back. They just look back to whatever they're doing, or they keep walking, or whatever. Or you walk down a hallway, they just walk right past you and act like they don't even know you. So we then internally begin to assume their intentions. Oh, they ignored me on purpose. They hate me. They disrespect. They don't respect me. All these sort of things. When a lot of times in reality, they just didn't see you. Or like my favorite was like, they're like, yeah, I tried to say hi to you. I'm like, nobody tried to say hi to me. I was like, because I've never ignored a single person in the entire world who has tried to say hi to me. Even people I didn't want to talk to. So I was like, I'm telling you right now, if they actually, if they were to say, hey Caleb, I would have been like, stop what I'm doing, whatever it is. Like, it's like there's nothing where I'm so like, hard charged where I don't realize somebody's trying to talk to me, unless they're like, and I might not see them because I am. They said, oh, well, I said hi. I said, no, you didn't. It's like I see that happen all the time. They're like, oh, yeah, like, you didn't. You did not. You didn't say anything. Like you may have thought like internally, you're like, oh, I'm gonna say hi. Why didn't they say hi back? You didn't say hi. Like, and I don't know if I'm not saying people make it up, but it's like, but it's just weird, and that's a lack of emotional intelligence. Because number one, then you're assuming the intention. That is that lack of emotional intelligence. You're assuming the intentions because you also are starting in a place of fear and a lack of confidence, because once again you're leaning and feeding into those emotions. And so you have to stop assuming intentions and just reacting and operating off reality. The only thing you know is what you know. Don't pretend like you know what's going on in someone's head. Don't pretend like you understand or know what they're thinking or why they do what they do unless you ask them. And when you ask them, go with what they say, because you have nothing else to go by. Now, if that person if it's something where like it's a continuation over time, and you're like, okay, now I'm starting to get that I can't count on this person or I can't trust this person. Well, you're still going to not assume their intention. What you may do though is you're like, okay, this person is not somebody I can rely upon, so I'm going to back off from trying to rely on them, but I'm not going to harbor any offense or still assume any negative things about them. But though, like I said, their actions have consequences. He said, and so you're like, okay, this person can't be relied on. I'm not going to rely on that person. It's like if you have somebody at work and they're on your team, and they need to be doing a specific thing, they forget, they do a bad job, they make a lot of mistakes. Well, then you're going to start to not rely on them, and you may not feel any like thing about them in terms of like, oh, they're terrible, or it's just you're like, okay, well, no, I need to get this done, and I can't rely on them to do it, so I'm just gonna do it myself. And it might not, no ill will or anything towards them. So that happens at work all the time. It's like, no, I'm just gonna do it myself. So, or you can go to the other person and say, hey, this happened, I felt this, I just wanted to hear, like, say, okay, so hey, the other day I saw you at church, saw you at work, and I tried to wave at you. I could have swore you saw me, but you didn't say anything, or you just walked away, or you walked right past me, and said, and I don't know, I'm not going to assume anything. I just wanted to see if you were upset with me, or if you just didn't see me, or whatever it may be. I just wanted to reach out. I said, okay, oh no, I just didn't even see you. Or maybe I said, no, I said, I'm upset with you, because then there's something like, no, I'm upset with you because you said this, and then you didn't do it. And you're like, oh crap, I totally forgot. See, and then you have that emotional intelligence brings a resolve to things that, because you're not perfect. So they say, you want to judge people. Oh, well, that wasn't my intention. Well, you want to judge people by their actions and you by your intentions. So you just got to deal with the reality of the situation. Don't try to assume anything that you don't know for a fact, because you don't know. And you may be right, you may be wrong. The only way is either to ask, to ask and to have that communication and conversation in order to find out. Because otherwise, you're going based off of assumptions of intentions, and that will always cause issues. So stop assuming intentions. Communicate these emotions and feelings with the person they're towards. If you don't want to, then that means you need to let them go. Not the person, the feelings. If someone does something to you and it's not important enough to you for you to then communicate, that situation to the person, then that means you just need to let it go. So then you need to go back to, okay, I feel okay. I felt it. This happened. Okay, and let it go. And I don't mean let it go like in terms of like I forgive this person and their wrongness. No, you say, okay, this person did this. I don't know what their intentions were. I hope they were for the best case scenario in a negative situation. Um, I really honestly just don't feel like going and talk to them, so I'm just going to assume the best, or at the very least, not assume the worst, and let it go. And not in terms of forgive the person, real or imagined, not in my rightness and their wrongness, but just in the fact that um, I know they're human, and I don't want to hold anything, so I'm gonna let it go. Then you move on. That's emotional intelligence, emotional maturity. So then you're able to, and as you do it, you'll be able to get better at it. You'll be able to get quicker at it. It might take a day or two or a week when you're first starting, because you gotta process things, and you're gonna say this, like, oh, and then it's gonna come back and and you gotta do it again. He said, so don't get frustrated. So the first person you need to have emotional intelligence with, and to realize that it's not about right or wrong. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. One of my, my counselor, one of his sayings that stuck with me is, you can be right or you can be free. Because if you're so hell-bent on being right, you are chained, you are bound to that emotion, and that like, no, I'm right, no, I'm right. And like you hold on to that offense. So, or you can be free. You can let it go. It's not about me being right. Whether I am or not, who cares? I'm letting it go. And that frees you. That frees you to be able to move on from anything and everything, to where you'll be able to, things will happen, you'll be able to process them, you'll be able to feel them, not deny them, and then let it go. You'll be able to move on, you'll be able to grow, you'll be able to achieve things and do things. And this right here will take you further in life than anything else that you're going to learn through this program. So you're going to stop assuming attentions. And then lastly, because I like to do things in threes, for I don't know why. Every time I try to like, oh, I need to stop doing so many threes. It just kind of happens that way. And so three, maybe every once in a while four. Once I think I like did something and it was five, but three just kind of, I don't know. I go with three, but three. So number three, the third one is, all right, this one. Stop with right or wrong thinking. I touched on it in that last one. But stop with right or wrong thinking. There are very few things in life that boil down to something's right and something is wrong. So there is sin, which is wrong. There is salvation, which is right. Outside of those things, there is not a lot of things that are black and white, right or wrong. A better way to approach things, a better way to approach situations, everything in life is it wise or is it foolish? So you need to move from a right or wrong perspective and begin to approach things from a wise or foolish. Because what might be wise for one person is foolish for another. What might be wise in one situation is foolish for another. It's like, there's a wisdom to the emotional vulnerability that you can have with your wife, that would be foolish to have it with a stranger at work. So there's a wisdom to, like I said, there's a wisdom to going to a friend and saying, "Hey, this happened and I'm bothered by it," and there's a foolishness to doing that to someone that is prone to gossip and rumor. It's like, there's wisdom, and then there's not a right or wrong. So that we need to get out of that right or wrong thinking, because that comes from, I think it stems from our wanting to be in control, because we want to be right. And then when we're not right, it causes issues. So get out of that right or wrong thinking. And that requires humility. So emotional intelligence, the basis of it is humility. The basis of immaturity, of emotional immaturity, is pride. The basis, the foundation of emotional intelligence is humility. You have to be humble. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be humble, and you have to understand that nobody is better than you. You're better than nobody. Nobody is greater than you. You're greater than nobody. Is to understand, to see others better than yourself, but not also to see less of yourself. That makes sense. I know it's kind of contradictory, but it's to understand you have to come and operate from a foundation of humility. Because when you come from a foundation of humility, then what you do is you come at these situations from a mindset and a perspective of wanting there to be growth, of wanting there to be healing, of wanting things to get better. Because right or people will destroy things to prove they're right. They'll destroy marriages. They'll destroy families. They'll destroy jobs. They'll destroy themselves to try to prove that they're right. But if they were just humble and they walked in wisdom, then they would. It's funny because then they prove they're right and they're miserable. But if they had the humility to realize that it doesn't matter, who cares? It's like, okay, you're right, but you lost everything. You destroyed everything. That person doesn't even want to ever see your face again. What does it matter? So what is the point? You've cut off ties and destroyed things. So you have to get out of this right or wrong thinking. And this one is, I say, it's pretty easy to do in terms of like there's not much like, oh, do this to practice. Like, no, just stop. When you right or wrong, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about, especially those who are married or in serious relationships, or wanting to become married, which that should cover pretty much everybody. Unless you're wanting to be a monk, and be celibate, then more power to you. If you're like that, though, you're probably not in this program, because those people usually have a high emotional intelligence. So, but is to get out of that right or wrong thinking. Just stop doing it. When you feel you say, oh no, I'm right. Who cares? Say that to yourself. Who cares? Say, I know, but what is wise? What is wise for this situation? What is wise? And you have to come from a place of humility. You got to come from a place of wanting to understand, of wanting to grow, of wanting to see things get better, of wanting to challenge yourself, and not get stuck in, well, I'm right. I'm going to sit here in my rightness. You're just wrong. And that is the hardest thing. I still have to work on that every day. I fail at it every day. And I succeed now more than I ever have before. But it's something it just takes time. It's the easiest to do in terms of understanding, like recognizing it. But I say it takes the most amount of time, because it's something where once you get a handle on a certain level, then that level just raises. And what you find is you continue to have to grow and get better at it. But so those three things are what you can do. So think about what you're thinking about. Stop assuming attentions and stop with right or wrong thinking. These three things will give you a head start on growing that emotional intelligence. So make sure you're filling out your emotional inventory sheet. And on the next call, we're going to talk about that. Make sure you bring that up, post it, and post how you're doing, any questions you have in the school community. And let's see, anything else? That was the only homework. The only homework you got is that emotional inventory sheet. So fill that out, keep track of that, keep working along with all the other steps. It's like I said, even though, we go over one of these things, once a week or every couple of days, it's not like, okay, I made it through, I don't have to do this again. No, these are things you want to keep using. They're add-ons from when we start to when we finish, and then you keep using those in order to keep growing, in order to keep yourself disciplined and focused, so that way you can begin to really see the change that you're looking for and really begin to walk in that purpose that God has for you. So just want to pray for everybody real quick, and then we will be done with this. And I believe this is the last module of the mindset, of the Change Your Mind module. And so we will be moving on to next month's Change Your Body, focusing on the outward change. Now that we've solidified and strengthened that inner change and become the internal men, the internal strength that we need to be in order to be who God created us to be. So Lord, I thank you for today, and I thank you for the men that are going to watch this video, and that they would be able to commit what they've learned to their hearts and to their spirits, and that they would begin to walk in the purpose that you have for them. Holy Spirit, I ask that you just come and you begin to strengthen the mind and the emotional intelligence of every man that hears this video and this teaching, that they would begin to walk in the purpose that you have for them, that they would be strengthened, and that they would be able to grow at an accelerated rate. So that way there is no wasted time or steps for them as they go towards their purpose, as they go towards the dreams that you've given them. Lord, I thank you for everything that you've done for me, and I thank you for everything that you've done for every man in this video, that you died on the cross for our sins, and that because of that and that grace that you've given us, we are here today able to live and learn and walk in your righteousness. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys, thank you for joining us today and learning about emotional intelligence. Don't forget to do your homework, post in school, ask any questions, and we will see you in our next module, Change Your Body.